Hello. Okay. Have you ever doubted your own importance as a mother? Did you know that women can have the greatest impact, one that lasts for centuries? I know. I could be accused of sending women back into the dark ages by promoting this kind of ideology. However, stick around and I'll give you some examples um, and give you some points to think about, and maybe it'll change your mind. And you might see motherhood in a different light. Good morning and welcome to the Messy Motherhood Podcast. I'm Haley Ramm, the host, and I'm a mother of five adorable children, also a wife. um, and I, I really believe in motherhood. Um, it was I guess I can share a little bit of my story about what I thought of motherhood and um, what my dreams were. 'Cause that's probably slightly important for my argument. So I actually grew up in a conservative Christian cult. And growing up, motherhood was the basically pretty much the only, you know, praised option for women. You were to, stay at home until you got married, and then you would have um, babies, and that would be your life, and that was it. Um, so kind of could seem like, oh my gosh, that's so oppressive, that's so limited. Um, And I did want children. I did want to be a mom. Um, I I actually didn't interact too much. I wasn't seen as the go-to babysitter. I loved babies. But as far as like young children, I was kind of intimidated by them and scared by them. And I didn't know it at the time, but I've since later learned that that had more to do with me being abused. Um, and um, Still a whole episode on that. Um, but I did dream of having my own babies, and raising my own children. But I also dreamed of owning my own cafe, being an author, being a writer, having my own business. And eventually that grew to, oh my gosh, I didn't know it was possible until I came across this one couple, Bodie and Brock Taney, and they were a husband and wife team that wrote books together. They took their expertise and paired it together to write these incredible, incredible books. And I was inspired by that, and I thought, "Aha, okay, here's what I want." I would love to work with my husband. We have our own business together and we raise our kids. And that was kind of the vision that I had. And I could imagine myself having, a lot of kids. I grew up with 10 siblings, and I had seven younger siblings. So I took care of children a lot. I did have a lot of experience. Um, for the first year of my youngest brother's life, I was his primary caretaker. I took care of him. I was 15, and he was my baby. Um, so I already knew I wanted to be a mom. There was no doubt in my mind, even though I guess the technical term is deconstructed, um, and untangled, some unhealthy beliefs about motherhood. And what I saw a lot growing up was the idea that mothers sacrifice themselves completely to the point where it took on like this. And we see this, this idea is still pervasive today, that, women are martyrs and they just give everything to the family, and then they run themselves down and like, oh my gosh, I sacrificed and gave up so much for you. And it ends up not being um, a healthy attitude that a lot of, daughters then think, I really don't think I want to be a mom because I watched my mom kill herself raising us. And I don't, they see that as the example and think that's not something for me. And so there is an unhealthy attitude of giving all of yourself to the point of you don't even take care of yourself, which I had to some extent, like I had some of those mentalities myself. So I've had to work that out. And I don't think that that is healthy and by any stretch because, the way you take care of yourself as a mom, the way you show up for your children, and the way that your attitude towards motherhood is going to affect your children, whether you like it or not. That's the thing is whether you believe you have influence, surprise, you have influence whether you believe in it or not. And this is an idea that, a lot of society just doesn't want to accept. We are so comfortable criticizing fathers for being absent and for leaving the home to go work, or not leaving the home to go. He's praised for leaving the home to go work. He's not praised for abandoning, obviously. However, we have praised women for abandoning their children. It is a badge of honor to go back to work 3 months, 3 years after you've had your child. And that's appalling. I'm just going to state up front that that is appalling. I'm sorry if this is offensive and this may be, your situation, the thing that you have chosen, but and this is meant to be a positive. This is going to be positive. I promise this will be positive. There's just going to be some uncomfortable truths that we have to acknowledge. You first have to acknowledge that you possess so much power. All right, we're all about women empowerment, but we have focused that energy in the wrong places. Yes, having autonomy, having the choice, that is empowering. But what is even more empowering for women is to understand the influence and the power that you already wield as a mother, as a wife, as just as a woman. If you know how to step into your feminine power, boy, are you going to affect the greatest change that you didn't even know you possessed. You are so powerful in your own right, and you don't have to be physically strong to be that. That is a mistaken idea that we need to be physically tough and we need to be as strong as men. We're not as strong as men, and the sooner we accept that, the better your life is going to be. Like, just let it go. And to be frank, my acceptance of femininity has been kind of a journey. Like, I feel like I have been in touch with my femininity, as they say, and I have lost touch with it as I have processed my own trauma. I was raised in an abusive home. So, because the environment that I was raised in was that masculine traits were seen as better than female. Yes, females were told, you have so much power, and and it was a manipulation to force them into a very sexist and misogynistic environment. And I don't mean that in like the traditional sense. I mean like genuine misogyny and sexism. Um, so I had to untangle, seeing masculine traits as better than female traits. Like, my opinion of women has been, has had to be recalibrated to some extent because I didn't regard myself as a female as that important, as that valuable, because of the culture I was raised in. Um, Women were seen as second class citizens, but it's in large part a lot of this, mindset shift has occurred because of my husband's reassurance and education and reaffirming over and over and over just how important my role as a woman, being a woman, is. And I have taken, his words and, gone to study, is this actually true? Like, I've studied femininity, I've studied females, and like, ladies, women, we have so much power. It's insane. You don't need to take, other traits that you deem like the masculine traits and say, this is what makes me powerful. You have power as your own right. And I'm gonna go through some famous people and reveal um their mothers. Good and bad, good and evil. All right. I have a mix because I think it is important. So this is gonna get a little dark at some point, but it's gonna get really positive. And the reason I want to point this out is because, back when um feminism was trying to gain, you know, traction, in its early start. We had women like Simone de Beauvoir. It's a hard name to say. A French philosopher, writer, and feminist activist. And she made this statement: no woman should be authorized to stay at home to raise her children. That doesn't sound very feministic to me, like the feminism that we've been taught, right? Society should be totally different. Women should not have that choice precisely because if there is such a choice, too many women will make that one. It is a way of forcing women in a certain direction. So, this woman understood that women are naturally drawn to do the thing that our bodies are screaming at us to be, right? If a woman goes too long without having her own children, in her 30s, and to some extent I have experienced this. I experience it far less than I have heard of other women experiencing it, simply because I already have 5 kids, so my body's not like, "Hey, we haven't produced, we haven't done what we're supposed to do." And but other women who are, not having children until their 30s, their bodies are literally going insane. And just women have talked about, I've seen videos of women talking about how they're like, my body just, during ovulation, I'm psychotic. My body's like, just we just need one. You can take that one. That one, just take a baby. We just need a baby. And there's a video that is trending right now. It's gone viral, of this woman who swore off children. She never intended to have children, and then she held her friend's baby for the very first time. And beautiful biology, the way that we are designed, kicked in, and she starts weeping. And then she's like, I want to cuddle this baby. I want to take my shirt off and do skin to skin, because her body was producing the oxytocin that she needs. And she was embracing a natural role that her body was designed for. And there's a lot of, language around, oh, pregnancy is so dangerous. It causes so many deaths, and it causes a lot less than it used to. Okay, let's be real. Um, and a lot of that has more to do with a woman's history. I'm just going to say that women who have been abused um, have far more uh, negative effects than women who don't. And also, the health of your pregnancy is also dependent on the health of your husband. So that's something we didn't previously know. Like, that's like new science that we're finding out. So that's important to know, and I think that is important information to take into consideration when we make these statements. Pregnancy is super dangerous and hard on the body. Yes, it is. If you're not supporting the body the way it should be supported. Absolutely. You could make the argument that anything is dangerous if you're doing it the wrong way. Right? If you don't have safety equipment and you're trying to do construction, someone's dying, okay? That principle goes across all the boards. You apply that to any situation. If you don't do things properly, you're going to have negative outcomes, most likely. So, it's not that pregnancy is this threat to the female body. Like, okay, if it was really that great of a threat, and women were um that at risk for dying every time they got pregnant, I think God would have created a better design. I'm just saying that's insulting the design that God created, and God created everything perfect and good. It's just the fallen world that and the results of sin, and like I said, abuse plays such an important role in the health of someone's body. It really does. And trauma, actually. Trauma. Um, so when we believe these statements that, you know, being a mother is this repressive thing, it's, oh my gosh, why would you even want to be a mom? Like, that's, you're just restricting yourself to, you know, raising kids. Like, what's the big deal? Well, you are continuing the human race, for one. So you're keeping humans from going extinct by contributing to the population. That's one thing. Secondly, we often forget, which is really hilarious that we forget this because women were supposed to be naturally great at thinking of all the things all the time. But I think we forget, and I forget sometimes, which is why I remind myself very often that children are the future. Like we say this, we know this, children are the future. Yet I don't think we realize the ramifications. Like the people who are going to take care of you as a society when you're old, you're putting seeds into that right now when you do have children. You are building the future. Okay? You're literally building the future. It's why Hitler went after the youth because he knew, hey, if I've got the young ones, I can control the nation and I can control because he was looking ahead. He was like, hey, I want my policies, my ideals to extend further than what the current adults can do for me. So he knew you get the children, I control the future. And I think, if evil people like that can have that capacity for understanding of, the importance of children, I think we as a healthy society should really, really take that into consideration and really dwell on that and think about that. And I know it's scary and it's intimidating and it's terrifying even. Like it terrifies me to know, oh my gosh, I'm in charge of these people's little minds, their future. And I know some parents, they don't want to be responsible for how their kids turn out. I've often heard, once they become adult, they make their own choices. Yes, they make their own choices. Absolutely. However, we now know that the first I went back. I've quoted this before, but I had the age wrong. It's the first 8 years. The first 8 years are what every person's natural code that they're operating on, your inner critic, your um, intuition, your instincts towards how relationships, who you can trust, that is all determined in the first 8 years. Now, obviously, you can rewrite the code. It can be like if your child is older than 8, you can be like, "Oh, well, it's too late." No, 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 no. You can always help. You can always change. You can always rewrite the code. You can always start a different pattern. It's just the first 8 years are when that child's brain are the most receptive and the easiest to create habits and patterns. You can obviously the brain is a miraculous thing and you can change it no matter what age you are. It just gets harder, especially when the brain is adapted and finishes adapting between the ages of 25 and 28, depending on if you're male or female. So, but that's important information. Like your child from the ages of 0 to 8 is very impressionable. They're absorbing everything. They're like sponges. They're literally like sponges and they're taking in all this information and their brains are writing all this code saying, okay, well, this happened this time. And now we have all of this data to support the fact that um, we can either trust this person or we can't. So, another thing that is very, very important to understand is that babies don't even know that they are fully out of the womb until 3 months of age. And a child does not finish bonding, building that attachment not bonding, attachment, which is the stabilizing or destabilizing relationship between mother and child. Or um, if the mother isn't there, then it will be the primary caregiver. And if that is, shifted on and off, then that's going to create a lot of issues for the child. But up until 3 years of age, they are establishing a consistent attachment. And that is shaping the health of that child. That will influence whether or not they have ADHD, whether or not they have mental illness, anxiety, depression in their teenage years. Like, we have that kind of impact. And I know it can be so difficult, especially as females who are largely influenced by what society says. Right? There are some outliers, myself, I'm including myself in that, because I largely do not agree with what society says mothers should be, like, or women should be. Um, but now we're having, women are easily influenced by society. Like, peer pressure works better on women than it does on men. And so that's why you have, these misconceptions that women are, this is going to go off topic slightly, but that women are the ones who have the lower sex drive. That's a misconception, and that's a lie. Um, I'm going to talk more about that, uh, not in detail, but a little bit more about that on the live stream on Friday, in the Reagan and Haley show. It's just that idea was promoted in the Victorian age. Lie back and think of England. And so all these women took this idea, oh, it's not acceptable. So women are super influenced by what other people say, by what the majority of people say. So, which that can be a good thing, but it can also be a very bad thing given, let's just look at what women have tended to believe in the past 50 years. Not great. Really not great. So, women back, the Simone de Beauvoir, she understood that women need to have the choice taken away from them, because if other women are making that choice, they're going to make that choice. So we just need to remove that choice, which is very horrifying. But she understood that women were moved by peer pressure. So, yes, women can still have careers. Sure, you can do the thing that you want to do. Um, I'm not just a mother. I'm not just a wife. I am a woman I have goals. I have a vision. I have ambition. I want to help women. I have this podcast. Um, but, and, you can be a CEO. You can work a job. You can build someone else's company, but you can also affect an even greater change through your children. You really can. And I love what one of my favorite parenting books is this one is called All About Raising Children by Helen B. Andelin. And oh man, when did she first publish this? I know she wrote it early on. I don't remember. I know this edition was made later. It was originally published in 1981. So this book has been around for a while. And this woman had 8 children, and she had a successful book career. But she talked about how, if you want to work and have children, then you have to be, it's going to require a lot from you as a female, as a woman. You're going to have to be willing to sacrifice your sleep to make sure that you are giving the dedicated time you need to your children. And her children were successful. She had 8 of them, and they were successful, and they all turned out amazing, and they loved her. But she talks about how, women feel like, they want to go to work because it seems more important. And they think, oh, there's the mundane of taking care of children, the diapers and blah, 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 blah. And she also makes the point that there's also mundane work that you have to do in a job. There are tasks that you have to do over and over and over. It's a repeated process, right? That's usually what you get when you have a job. You don't have a variety of things. And so You also might not have as many hilarious moments in a workplace that you would as being a mom. Because I can tell you the things that I have witnessed my children saying, doing, and the things that I have said, you know, please stop licking your brother. Or just witnessing them behaving like, oh, it's just really hilarious. They're so funny. They're so funny. A 2-year-old can make jokes, and it's just there's never a dull moment because I work with children who are somewhat predictable, but they're also unpredictable in what their thinking and, comprehension levels are. And then you might have the wildest questions that you have to deal with, which is hilarious. Um, so yes, you can work a job. You can absolutely advance someone's career, someone's company, and women have done great things through building companies. Those That's not bad. I think it's I think it's a mistake to think that you have to get your career out of the way first, then you have children. No, 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 no. You have the backwards. Have the children. Like if you look at biology from that point of view, like you you are more fertile when you're younger. Duh, everybody knows this. And the older you are, the harder it is to have a kid. But we have been convinced to flip that, to wait to have children, and then it's harder. And then women get frustrated. And you wouldn't have that frustration if you just moved with your biology and had the children where you were younger. Like I had 5 kids in my 20s. And no, I do not regret that one bit. Like I am so glad I had them then. I was younger. I was somewhat healthier. I'm getting help. My health story is not the perfect case because I've been traumatized and dealt with a lot of health issues because of that. But in large part, my pregnancies have been amazing. They've been incredible. They've been relatively easy. Um, and I am so glad that I had my children first. I'm extremely glad that I had them first because here's what's going to happen is eventually they're going to grow up. They're going to leave. And oftentimes you find, empty nesters, women, their children move out of their house and they're like, well, what do I do now? But it doesn't have to be that way. You can have the thing that you can be like, okay, well, now I know what I'm going to do. Obviously, I know what I'm going to do. I have so much that I need to do. So it's, we have to start flipping this the other way. We have to start, oh, hey, Caspian, can you go find daddy? He wants his snuggles early in the morning. And I think daddy's going to come get you. Do you want to sit with mommy? Although he's going to want. No? Okay. Okay, he's just standing there. All right, he's not crying. So we're good. Where's that? So, right, we can have great change. We can affect great change through children. If you even have just one, you are influencing the future of one, but you're not just influencing the future of one person. You are influencing all of the people that child has in contact with, that adult now interacts with. You are having that kind of an impact, all right? Whether you understand it, whether you acknowledge it, it's happening. Okay. All right. I'm going to come get you. All right. Let's get step aside here. Do you want to come sit with me? Yeah. Okay. Now I cannot do tatas right now, but you just want to sit with me and snuggle? I think Girlies are gonna fight. Girlies sound like they're fighting. All right. All right. Okay. Do you want to sit and listen to me talk about being a mama?
And you.
Yeah. Yeah, that is me. So then you have, so if you are influencing one, right? You're having the impact on, you think it's just one person, but you are influencing all the people they interact with. And the way I like to think about it is you are influencing kingdoms. Each child is a potential kingdom. They have their own domain that they, are in charge of, and then all the people that they interact with are like the little subjects, whatever. So, right, you have one child, that's one kingdom that you are influencing. You have multiple children, your kingdoms increase exponentially. Because like it or not, we directly influence our children. Like the way we are, the habits, and I'm gonna have to do a whole episode on this and on its own right. Like the way we are is the way they are going to eventually be, because we can say all the things, we can tell them to do all the things, but at the end of the day, children are going to look at what we do, how we behave, and then they will model it. They're excellent mirrors. They're such excellent mirrors. I know people who I've often heard like, oh, marriage is a great, holds up a mirror to yourself. Parenting is more what does that, because they often just do your own behaviors and like, where did you get that annoying behavior? And you're like, oh snap, you got it from me. You got it from me. So with that in mind, I'm going to go through a list of famous people and point out the relationship they had with their mother.
Blanket.
You need a blanket. I don't have a blanket. I don't have a blankie. Do you want to? I hear Daddy. Do you want to go ask Daddy for a blankie?
My bedroom.
You want to go in the bedroom? You could do that. No, you just sit with Mommy. I'm close to being done. Do you want to sit here for a few minutes? Okay. So I'm going to demonstrate. I'm going to show you, walk through a couple of famous people and give the what these famous people's mothers, their influence, and the relationship to them was. Because, as I said before, like it or not, how our children turn out has to somewhat to do with the mom. It just does. So the first person is Daddy brought you a blankie. Say thank you. Left that there on a cliffhanger. Okay. You good now? Okay. I think he's good. All right. Left me on a cliffhanger. I was just about to say who the first person was. So the first person that I wanted to kind of shine a light on is Albert Einstein. Everybody knows who Albert Einstein is. That's like, you can't know about, science or anything without learning about Albert Einstein. And some may know this. I mean, this was gaining a lot of traction, but this story is very important. He, was a quiet and thoughtful boy. He loved numbers, music, and asking big questions. But in school, his teachers, they didn't understand him. So one day, Albert, brings home a letter from the school. And he couldn't read yet, so he asked his mother to read it aloud so he could understand. So his mother, Pauline, opened the letter and read it to him, and this is what she said. Dear Mrs. Einstein, your child is very intelligent. He is too smart for our school, and we cannot teach him anymore. Please teach him yourself. So Albert never questioned that, and she his mother taught him. And there was also other times where he would write like really complicated papers and his father didn't understand, but his mother was like, "You know what? I'm going to try to read this because I want to be involved in your life." She was still invested in his life even later on. And she encouraged him every day. She took charge of his education, you know? I mean, you could any mother could be like, "Oh, no, that's too intimidating. I can't I'm gonna ruin my kid's education." Well, she decided, "You know what? School's failed him, so I'm going to be there for him. I'm gonna step up for him, and I'm going to encourage him to be, whatever it is he wants to be." Obviously, we know the result of Albert Einstein, but years later, he found that old letter again, and he read it, and it said something very different. It read, "Your son is mentally slow. He cannot learn anything. Please take him out of our school." That right there should just shake you to your core to know that that is the power that you have over your kid. She could have told him the truth. She could have been like, "Well, I guess you're too stupid to learn." But instead, she was like, "They obviously have it wrong. They're not, teaching him the way that he needs to be taught." And she believed in him and she showed up for him. And he went on to do incredible things. So that's just one. Then we have Thomas Edison. He was also, like everyone knows who Thomas Edison is. Great inventor, invented the light bulb. He his teachers labeled him difficult, and he was actually expelled from school at the age of 12.
Mommy.
And his mom, instead of just accepting what the, educational authorities at that time believed about her son, she was like, "Nope, I'm going to teach you and you're going to do great things." And under her guidance, he blossomed into one of the world's greatest inventors, holding over 1,000 patents. Like, that's incredible. And all because a mom decided, "Hey, I believe in you." Her influence was what had a great effect. Then you have,
Mommy,
yes, baby.
I'm hungry.
You're hungry. Do you want to go ask daddy for some food? He can get you some breakfast.
No.
No, you just want mommy to get you breakfast. Well, I'm almost done here, but if you want your breakfast now, you'll have to go ask daddy, okay? Do you want to go ask daddy for some food?
No.
Okay. Um, so then you have Billy Graham. And he's, again, I think he's well known. He's one of the biggest, preachers of the day and led thousands of people to Christ. And his mother was very loving. Her and her husband prioritized, scripture in their home. And she also prayed very intentionally for her children. But the one story that really stood out to me was he talks about how I'll just read what he wrote. Um, My mother, like most mothers, had her own way of getting her point across. She always sat up and waited until I got home, no matter what time it was. It really bugged me because it made me feel guilty. I don't know how many times I tried to slip in late. There she would be, dressed in her robe, sitting in a rocker with a book or a Bible on her lap. Don't touch it. "Thank God you're all right," she'd say. That was it. She never lectured me or made threats. Mama would just smile, say goodnight, and go to her room. No matter how I begged her not to wait up for me, and she was always there with the light on when I arrived. I began to feel ashamed that Mama was losing sleep waiting up for me. I knew my mother well enough to know that she was not going to change her ways, so I had to change mine. I finally just gave up and started coming home earlier. I ended up with a curfew of my own making. So this mom just showed love and concern, and it affected the change that she desired. She wanted her son to be safe, and he eventually, as you heard, he listened. And but he had a very good relationship with his mother, and she was there for him. She showed up. Then you have John and Charles Wesley's mother, Susanna Wesley. um she's actually really fascinating. she like so she had oh man, she had 19 children, but only 10 survived to adulthood. Um, she managed their household. They were often in dire financial circumstances, and her husband was imprisoned for debt. So that sounds like a very tumultuous, upbringing. However, it John and Charles Wesley, like, look them up if you're not sure who they are, but they are John Wesley is responsible for starting the Methodist movement. Um, and then Charles Wesley was a preacher and he wrote a couple of hymns, I think. Um, but they were great preachers of their day. And she was in charge of their teaching, their education, their home life. Like she ran her home well, and she would teach other people too. Like that's she didn't let just being a mom, stop her from doing what she thought she needed to do, which I find that very encouraging because it's like she used her home as a a place of like a base of operations basically. Um then I was curious and I looked up George Washington's mother. Um, and she ended up being a single mother by the time George was 11. Her husband died. Um, but she still dedicated her life to raising her children. Like she was still,
Then
they had their own place. Like all of her children were successful. Um, and she didn't end up dying of breast cancer, which I thought that was kind of interesting. But there's a quote that I found. It was said that Mrs. Washington informed her son of her poor health and expected to die soon. And George was willing to decline presidency to to go take care of his mother. And his mom responded, "No, go, go fulfill the high destinies which heaven appears to have intended for you. Go, my son, and may that heavens and a mother's blessing be with you always." Like that's so powerful. Like a mother who was, sick and dying, and instead she encourages her husband to or her son to go be the president. Like that's amazing. You going to daddy?
go sorry.
Okay. Okay. Bye-bye. So those are all incredible people. Like those are all, you know, interestingly enough, those were all men that I thought of. I know there are famous women out there too. I just, for some reason, I only thought of had men in this example. um, but then I have three. This is a little bit of a darker turn, but I'm very fascinated by the effects that parents have on children and the way they turn out. And so the next three examples are going to be of some very bad people. The first one is Ted Bundy, right? Everybody knows Ted Bundy was a serial killer. And his mother, I found this. I was like, I've never thought to look this up before. And when I did, I was like, well, this explains a lot. um, his mother had him out of wedlock. In fact, he wasn't even sure who his father was for the longest time in 1946. So back then, getting pregnant out of wedlock there was a lot more public shame than there is today. A different topic altogether. But to avoid the stigma of being an unwed mother at the time, she initially raised him to believe his grandparents were his parents and she was his sister. Now, you could say, well, he had loving parents then, right? But here's the thing that we don't want to accept is that a baby's body knows who its mother is. They know. They've spent 9 months inside their mother already. They know that something is wrong, something is missing, and that that can cause abandonment issues. He also had abandonment issues by his father because he didn't know who he was. And she later married Johnny Bundy, and She did maintain a close and loving relationship with him, even to the point of not believing that he did the things that he did. Um, but that's very telling. That's very telling. That unstable upbringing is very important, and I think we need to start really looking into this a little bit more. Then I got even more I was like, "Okay, well, that's Ted Bundy, right?" And Ted Bundy was said to be, like, super charming at everything. So, you don't have to be, like, this horrible, abrasive person, and in fact, more often, it's the nice ones you have to look out for. Um, so then I was curious, and I looked up Jeffrey Dahmer's mother. I know, I'm very twisted, but he was born to parents who were married, but they had a very, very, very unstable relationship. And his father was emotionally distant, absorbed in his work, and his mother struggled with mental health issues, including depression, anxiety, and was reported to have substance abuse issues. And so his parents had a very tumultuous relationship, including frequent arguments and episodes of emotional volatility, which deeply affected Jeffrey. And so he had a lot of emotional neglect as a kid. He was neglected a lot, actually. And his parents ultimately divorced when he was 18, leaving a lasting mark on him. And for those of you who don't know, Jeffrey Dahmer was a cannibal um, in the 1970s. And that's another thing is you see, if you look at history, we didn't start to have this rise in school shooters, um, unstable people who were causing all this great harm, serial killers, psychopaths. There wasn't a whole lot of that until after the feminist revolution, until the 1960s. After that, when women came out of the home, there was a rise. There's a very, very distinct rise in those kinds of behaviors, those kinds of peoples, those those kinds of crimes. Like, it wasn't that much of an issue before. Now, there's always going to be someone somewhere saying, "Oh, well, this person was this there." I'm not denying that those kinds of people have existed, but it wasn't such a rampant problem until recently, when we decided that women should be outside the home. And I want to read a study. This is also in the All About Raising Children. Um, she cites the importance of mothers being home with the children for the first 6 years of a child's life. It's very important, very, very important. And so she cites that there was a study done in 1953. Two American criminologists made tests on 300 American boys, asserting that it was possible to spot a future criminal on the day a child begins schooling. Of the 300 boys tested, 27 were charted as potential delinquents. 10 years later, in 1963, 23 of the 27 boys, 23 of the 27 had become serious and persistent criminals. Now, Eleanor Gluck, who assisted in the study, said that the mother plays an important role in whether the child is to become a delinquent. She advises, quote, "It is terribly important that the mother should remain close to her children. If a mother goes out to work, there has got to be a loving substitute," end quote. And she goes on to say that a mother's presence in the home is very important, that we mistake quality time with quantity thinking. If we just spend enough quality time with our children, that's going to make up for the lack of quantity, and quantity beats quality time and time again when it comes to this kind of thing. So we literally have the ability to prevent criminals. Just a thing. And the last person I kind of wanted to bring attention to was, and this I just have, dark interests sometimes. But I looked up Hitler's mother. Okay, we all know Adolf Hitler. um, and interestingly enough, his parents were actually second cousins. I thought that was interesting. But um, his father was abusive. So his sister, Paula, described her mother as very soft and tender person who adored her son Adolf. Meanwhile, her father was reportedly abusive and regularly beat Adolf. And Paula told the Washington Post he was a scrubby little rogue, and all attempts of his father to thrash him for his rudeness were in vain. Obviously, I think given last week's episode, it's very clear where I stand on spanking. That was inappropriate, and I'm not gonna. I would say that his father played a role in who he became, obviously. But what's interesting is he adored his mother, and his mother was interested in what he wanted. He says, there's a quote from him saying, "The happiest days, which seemed to me almost like a beautiful dream." And then she dies from cancer in 1907, and the doctor, I think his name was Block. Okay. Um, you'll have to go talk to Daddy about that one. Okay.
No.
Okay. Um, she ended up with breast cancer, and Adolf, forwent any um going to art school. He dropped out to take care of his mother, and it was very excruciating, and it was painful. Um, and the doctor, Dr. Block, um, recalled outwardly his love for his mother was his most striking feature. I've never witnessed a closer attachment. And he also said, in all my career, I've never seen anyone so prostrate with grief as Adolf Hitler. And the doctor, he went on to say he didn't think Hitler's love for his mother was pathological. He just remembered him as being the saddest man he'd ever seen when he was informed about his mother's imminent death. And his view of his mother, Clara, was she was pious and kind and would have turned in her grave if she knew what had become of him. So some have even suggested that the dissolution of that attachment, the loss of his mother, some way contributed to his violence. And we can often, we just sometimes it's easy to just be like, oh well, some people are evil, but evil people are not born, they are made. All right, life happens, and people's response to whatever life throws at them is you know is what will shape them and determine what they do in life, right? Your response to the situation, circumstances in your life is what shapes you, right? If someone goes through something traumatic and then ends up just beaten down and allows it to crush them, well, then that was your choice. But you also have the choice to fight. You have the choice to push back and not let it derail your life and control you and turn you into something evil. We all have this choice. And so I guess my point is he had that much of that big of a relationship with his mother that it affected him that much. Because obviously we all know what the loss of a parent can do to you. It can be absolutely devastating. I think you combine that with his abusive father, and then boom, you've got someone who's going to be controlled by anger and rage. And so I'm not making the point that, he had a great relationship with his mom and then, this is how he turned out. It's because he lost that good influence. I would argue that he may not have been in that position had his mother not died. Which I know this this can be really controversial. It's really hard. Everybody has their own opinions about Hitler, but I think understanding how people become the way they become is very important, because again, evil people are not born. They're made. They are made. Every human being has the potential to be really good or really evil. Everyone does. I just thought that was extremely fascinating, for one thing. So, like I said, like we have the ability to shape future leaders. We have the ability to affect great change. And it can be really hard to remember this, especially when, you are consumed with, oh my gosh, I'm doing the same thing every day. This is monotonous. This is never going to end. All seasons end. In fact, a lot of women are told, "Oh my gosh, enjoy it now because it's gonna evaporate and you're gonna look back and you're gonna regret it." And I think that language can be helpful, but it can also be very paralyzing and cause a lot of guilt. And I mean, in my experience, it has. It's not been great for me because I'm like, "Oh my gosh," and to some extent, it's been good too. But knowing that I have this responsibility, that I am in charge, is both very weighty, but it also excites me a lot. And it excites me so much because I can look down the road and I have the ability to see what might happen, right? If you can imagine the greatest thing that your child has to do, right? You could see their potential. You could see what they could go on to be doing. And if you keep that in mind, that can be helpful in remembering this is important. This is important work. No matter what people tell you, you cannot outsource being a mother. I'm sorry. You cannot and you should not outsource being a mother. You had that child. That child is now your responsibility. They are looking to you, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, even if they get abandoned, right? There is redemption, obviously. But when mothers do not take an active role in their children's lives, it has devastating effects. There's there's one woman, Erica Commissar. She's done many studies. She has looked at the effects of like what daycare has on children, the effects of how a mother leaving too soon. Like she studied this. Go watch her podcast, go read her books. She has done the research. It's incredible. And the other thing I want to point out is like I'm a Christian and I often look to the Bible. And the other example I left out was God used two mothers to bring about his plan, his kingdom to earth, right? Two women, right? He didn't have to do it this way. God could have orchestrated this plan any way he wanted. Yet he decided that the best course of action would be to have his son come to earth through a woman and he be raised by that woman. Obviously, Joseph was there as well. But when you read scripture, you see his mother, Jesus's mother, has a big impact on him. And yeah, there are times when his mom was like, "Okay, you got to stop. You're embarrassing all of us. You need to." She tried to shut his ministry down, but she was also very influential too. She encouraged him to do his first miracle. She's like, "Hey, hey, make the wine. Do it." And she was affecting him even then. Like John the Baptist, his mother, like I don't know much about his mother, but God thought it that important to use a mother to bring about his kingdom. Like that, can you even just comprehend that for just a few moments? Think about that. The God of the universe decided mothers were a good choice to bring his kingdom and enact his salvation plan. That's incredible. That is incredible. And I think if we dwell on that, if we think about what that means and the potential that God knows that all mothers have, I think it'll just dwell on that, just ponder that, just let it sink in just a little bit. And the one quote that I always loved, and I heard a lot growing up, was "The hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world." And it's from a famous proverb and poem by William Ross Wallace. And in that poem, it praises motherhood, suggesting that women possess immense silent power to influence future generations and shape the world through nurturing and guiding children. So as you go about your day, as you interact with your children, as you make their lunches, you comfort their poor, sad little hearts, take care of their emotions, pay attention to them, connect with them, see them, really see them. Look and really look at your children and try to imagine what they could potentially be. And imagine great things because all children have the capacity to be great. All of them have the potential to be leaders. All of them have that capacity. And in fact, four of them, not the fifth one yet because he's still too young to know, but 4 out of 5 of my children all have the qualities of leaders and CEOs. No joke. Like, some might think, oh, well, it's just an accident. Some people are more naturally bent. No, 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 no. You shape that. You shape how your children show up in the world by how you treat them, by how you show up for them, by how you encourage them. We have great power, and with great power comes great responsibility. So it's not this menial task that you are doing. You are shaping futures. You are shaping future outcomes. The fate of humanity rests on you. Like, I know that seems like, oh, my kid. I don't think so. I've heard how women talk about their kids. Like, yeah, my kid's not smart enough to do that. Yeah, I don't think they're going places. Please don't say that in front of them. I'm going to have an entire podcast talking about that. But if you don't think your child has great capacity, think about why that is. Have you limited yourself? Where did that belief enter your life? Is it because you don't see yourself as having that great a potential? So how could they have that great potential? Right? The attitudes that you possess about yourself, the way that you speak to yourself, your children are internalizing that themselves. The way you treat other people is how your children are going to treat other people. The way you treat your husband is how your children are going to eventually view their father and eventually view men. The way you treat yourself is how they're going to think women should be treated. Right? We're all about, oh, let's teach, men not to be, predators and blah 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 blah. Just be a decent person. Right? Our actions are what influence them. We can speak to them all day long. And yes, your words do matter. The way we speak to them does matter. But at the end of the day, what they're more looking at, especially when we're younger, is how we act. That's how we act. A child's inner critic is your voice. Literally. I can tell by how someone's parents were by the things that they say to themselves. It's kind of horrifying sometimes to know that, but it's also very illuminating. So this is an amazing, weighty. Sometimes it can feel like, holding the world on your shoulders, but that's you are shouldering worlds of possibility, worlds of potential, worlds of greatness by changing that diaper, by cleaning up that mess over and over and over, by comforting that child, by encouraging them, by patting them on the back and praising them for the things that they did, for accepting them for who they are and helping them to become the great person that they have the potential to be. All children are geniuses, and it is the systems that we have in place currently that typically beat it out of them. So just remember, you can have the career, maybe do it later. Your career is your child. Now, obviously, I'm not saying like sometimes there's too much information. The language of, oh, don't make your child the center of your world. Don't make them, believe that everything is about them, but let them know that they're important, that they're valued. Respect them. Respect your child, that they're a human being too. And at the end of the day, remember, you have power to shape the future. You have that power. You have that capacity, whether you believe it or not. Go learn about, the attachment. Go read Erica Commissar. She'll make you want to stay home with your kid and never leave them. And she is a great advocate for children. She's very mad that, the systems we have in place are harming the children and no one seems to care. And she's right. So remember, you have great potential. You have great power. And you are doing a great work as a mother. It's incredibly important, and it is one of the most important things you could do. 'Cause again, I'll say it like this is like the 10th time, but you are shaping the future. You are literally shaping our future that we have to live in someday. So, I I hope this was helpful. I hope this was inspiring. I'm really curious to know how, what you think about this. Please drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's have a great discussion about this. Let's, what if let me know how this information changes your outlook and your attitude towards motherhood. And drop that in the comments below. And I hope to see you in the next podcast next week. And thanks for watching.